Hey everybody, happy Monday. Welcome to our Facebook Live. It is October 28th, and today we are talking about rules, household rules, why you need to have them and why you need to enforce them. So before we really dive into this, jump on here, say hello, tell me where you're from, and yeah, I'd love to hear where you're from. I'd love to hear from you. And during the course of this, we're talking about household rules. If you have questions, pop them in here. If I have a chance at the end, I'll try to answer them. If not, I'll go back after, as always, and answer these because these go up on my Facebook page immediately when we're done. And then this afternoon, I will have it also on my website. So let me just tell you a couple quick announcements. The podcast, Common Sense Parenting with Pam, is now live. Its first episode went up last week. So every Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, you can catch a new episode. Last week's was on problem solving, and this week's tomorrow is on self-control. The first 10 episodes, they air once a week, are going to cover the 10 foundational skills that I feel all children need for success. And then, of course, we'll add other podcast episodes after that. So you can catch it on Spotify, on iHeart, on Amazon Music right now, and there's like 6 other ones, like FM radio, Listen Notes. The link is on my website. You can catch it there. Hopefully Apple's going to be approved this week, so it'll be up on Apple Podcasts. And I'm working on Alexa and YouTube. So I'll be happy to get them on all their directories, but at least there's a start. Okay, I'm excited about that. The other thing I've added to the website, speaking of that, and that's PamelaPalanza.com, is a weekly bonus. So once a week, I'm changing the bonus. If you go to the content corner, look under read, you will see on the right-hand side, it'll say weekly bonus. Grab it before it's gone. I'm only offering it for 7 days. So every Sunday, a new digital download will go up there. Now, there is a charge for it, $3.97. That'll always be the case no matter what it is. So check it out every week and grab it if you want it that week, because once it's gone, it's gone. This stuff is not on my website anywhere. It's not going to be available anywhere else. So if you want it, you have to get it there. Okay. Now, we're going to get into rules, but I just want to tell you next week what we're going to talk about is instilling gratitude in your children. How you can do that, why you should do it. I'm excited about that. When you go get the holidays coming up, and this is, children always have the gimme, gimme, gimmes, I want. And even more so during the holiday season. And I don't know about you, but it seems to me like you go into the store, I think like in August, they started putting out Halloween stuff. It was crazy, right? So is ramping the children up even earlier because they want. And so we're going to talk about that. I think that'll be a good topic for next week. Okay, so why did I decide to do rules today? Well, let me tell you. I was raised in a household where my parents were the parents. They were in charge. And I think most of my generation was that same way. They weren't mean. They weren't cruel. They weren't harsh. They didn't spank us or abuse us in any way, yell at us. They were the parents. They were in charge. They had rules. Did we always like them? No. Did we have to follow them? Yes. Did we always think they were fair? No. And my dad would say, life isn't fair. Just the way it is. It's my house, my rules. You don't have to like it, but when you're 18, you can leave if you want to. Okay, so that's entirely up to you. But when you're in my house, under my roof, you're going to follow my rules. Same way we raised our children, same way they're raising their children. In fact, we used to tell our kids, this is not a democracy, this is a dictatorship. We're the parents. We're in charge. And I heard my son telling my children that the other day. Hey, Sharon. So here's the deal. I did a reel about that. I had done a reel, and then in response to that, people said, well, how would you have handled that behavior? And that's when I said, well, in my house, this is the way it went. That to date, as of this morning when I checked, had 1.6 million views, almost 1.7 million views, 9,300 shares, and 2,400 comments. Clearly, I struck a nerve here. Clearly. Now, I will say 95% of the people agreed. Like, yes, you're the parent. You're in charge. It's not up for negotiation. It's not up for compromise. You're the parent. Be the parent. You're not your child's friend. You're the parent. And I got a lot of hate and nasty comments. I ignore those. And then I had some people say things like, well, I never had rules for my children. Or I would let my 10-year-old daughter negotiate rules with me. That's a whole nother whole nother subject. Anyway, it was interesting to me. And then I had literally had people say, you know what, I didn't do what you're saying, or I didn't raise my children that way. And now they're paying the price for it as adults. Or now, I realize my mistake, but my children are paying the price for it. And if I had a do-over, I would have done it differently, right? So you live and learn. But rules are in place to give your children boundaries, right? To guide their behavior, to give them a sense of security. That's your job as a parent. All right, let me see who's hopped on. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Nancy. Okay, so why are they important? Why do rules matter? Well, it gives your children a sense of security and safety and protection, right? So they know what's expected. They know they have to follow through. They know that these rules are in place. Well, they may not know that. You may have to tell them. They're here to keep you safe. Like, I'm your parent. I love you. I want the best for you. It's my job to protect you, keep you safe, and raise you how to go out in the world and be able to do that for yourself. And so I'm going to give you a visual on this. So picture where you're sitting right now. Okay, whether you're in your house, an apartment, wherever you are, you're sitting. Now, I'm assuming where you are, unless you're outside somewhere, I'm assuming where you are, you have a foundation underneath you. There's 4 walls and there's a roof over your head. So these 4 walls are your boundaries. That foundation is that solid foundation that we talk about, the children need. And then over your head, you have this roof. And that's protecting you. It's keeping you safe from the elements. So you have your safety, you have your security, you have your foundation, you have your protection. That's what rules do for your children. Now, take all the walls away, take the roof away. Now what happens? Do you feel safe? Do you feel secure? Are you protected? No. When you had your house and your walls and your roof, if somebody went to come in your house, they had to knock at the door. I mean, unless they broke in. That's a whole different thing. But say they knocked at your door. You chose whether or not you wanted to let them in. You knew you were safe from the elements. You're not going to get rained on, snowed on, sunburn, because you have a roof over you, have protecting you. There's your protection. So you know everything you need. It was right here. You're safe, secure. You have your boundaries. But now that's all been taken away. How does that make you feel? Don't you feel exposed? Don't you feel like rudderless? Like, what am I supposed to do? What happens if someone tries to come in and steal my television? What if people could just walk through here? I'm not protected. That's why you have rules. Because in life, in your house, when your children go to school, when they're on a sports team, when they have friends, when they go to work, they go to college, they go to trade school, in society, there are rules. There are rules when you walk in a store. No shirt, no shoes, no service. I live in a beach town. You see that a lot. That's the rules. You don't have to like them. So you're trying to, when you don't have a shirt on, sorry, go find a shirt or go somewhere else. Those are the rules. Okay, so let me give you another example. So that house metaphor, I just feel like, oh my gosh, when I talk about moving all that, it feels like really, I feel unsafe. How am I going to protect myself? All right, so here's another example, and I did a reel about this. Hi to everybody coming in. My husband and I were driving Saturday to get breakfast, and it was 9 o'clock in the morning, and we're driving down the roads, 2 lanes, 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. So we're in the left lane, and there's an unmarked SUV, police car here, and he's got his lights on, and he's only doing like 35 miles an hour, and he's slow. And so we're curious, like, what is going on? And in front of him was a guy on a motorcycle. Now, not like a big, like a Harley, but kind of between a scooter and a motorcycle, let's just say. And he's maybe in his 20s, and he's riding on the side of the road. And clearly, the rule in our society is, if you're driving and there's a police car and they have lights on, they're trying to pull you over, the rule is you pull over. But this guy decided, I don't want to follow the rule for whatever reason. Now, I will say he did not have a helmet on. And in North Carolina, where I live, you have to have helmets. That's the law. That's the rule. So what he did, he would pull off the road slightly, and the officer would pull off, and then he would veer back on the road and speed up. And then the officer would go back, but just stay steady right behind him. Now, he did this twice. It was almost comical for a minute because they were going back. But then the third time, he went off the side of the road, and I think what he was intending to do was there was like a dirt path, and I think he thought he was going to hit that and go through the woods and get away. But we live in a beach town. We have very sandy soil. His bike, his motorcycle hit into that sand and he lost control. So he teetered like this for a while. And then he put his legs down. He was back and forth. And then his bike went over and he went flying off to the right into the ditch on the side of the road. Now we kept going, obviously. About 10 minutes later, we hear the ambulance sirens coming. We come back 45 minutes later. There's the police car. There's the motorcycle. There's some clothing on the side of the road. The guy was probably at the hospital or on his way. Now let's talk about this. The rule was you stop. If he had just stopped, gotten his ticket, faced a consequence for violating the rule, things would have been a lot easier on him. But he tried to violate that rule or avoid the consequences, and he created more problems for himself. That's just a real life situation. Think of the time and the expense now that he's going to have to face, because now he's going to have hospital bills. I hope he was okay. The way he flew off, I think he probably either dislocated a shoulder or broke an arm or a leg, because he went flying pretty far off that side into the ditch. But anyway, my point is, all he had to do was follow the rule. It's that simple. When your children are coming to you and going, it's not fair, I don't want to have to do this. It's like, well, life isn't fair, but you have to do it, and that's all. You need to get it done. Okay, so let's talk about why your children need to know rules. Okay, it makes them feel secure, like we talked about, feel safe. They know what their expectations are. They know what their responsibilities are. And it promotes responsibility. When you have something you have to do, when you do it, you feel good about yourself, right? And here's what you need to teach them. You're part of a family. And as a family, we work together as a team to keep this family functioning well. That's part of your responsibility. Now, let me just say this. Some people have a problem with rules, the word rules. They don't like to call them rules. Chores. What I'm talking about here with all of this is like the operations of your family. Okay? So I do the thing, actually the bonus I have up this week, the Happy Home Agreements, that's talking about how you behaviorally will conduct yourselves in your family. You know, with kindness, with respect, whatever. And you can sit down and have a little meeting with your family. Say, how do you think we should do this? That's one thing. But what I'm talking about today is all the operational, how you maintain the house. That's the chores. That's the responsibilities. So some people, instead of calling them chores, call them responsibilities. Call them expectations. Call them standards. You know, you say, hey, these are our standards. These are expectations. These are the responsibilities, however you want to word it. Create that list for your children, and then you need to follow through on it, enforce it. We're going to talk about that. Okay, so it builds respect and trust. When they know as a parent you're going to be consistent, you mean what you say what you mean, and you're consistently going to follow through, they learn to trust you and respect that. Okay, it's important they do that at a young age, because they're going to have to do that through life. All through life. And then it sets them up for future life skills. I mean, I can imagine some of the followers' comments I got were kind of funny, because they would say, well, clearly I had someone who came to work for me that never was taught responsibilities and didn't like things that they had to do here and would get mad and quit. Or I had to let them go because they never clearly were taught those things as a child. Because you start these at a young age, and you continue these through. Yes, they're going to change as your children grow and develop. You might have more rules. You might have different rules. And if you have multiple children in the family, you might have a 5-year-old, and then you have a 12-year-old. And the rule at bedtime is the 5-year-old goes to bed at 7, and the 12-year-old can stay up till 9. And the 5-year-old's like, well, that's not fair. Well, it might not seem fair to you, but when you're 12, you'll get to stay up, and then it'll be fair. Okay, so you can explain the reasons why one time, but you never get into a negotiation and a compromise and a discussion that you have to justify your rules, because you're the parent. That's your job. And they don't have to like it. I know I always didn't. I didn't like all the rules my parents had. But boy, am I glad now as an adult when I look back, see why they did. I'm so thankful and so grateful. My children too. People said to me, oh, I'll bet your children have nothing to do with you. Quite the opposite, actually. We have very close relationships, and they're here a lot. So, you know, that made no sense. People just don't understand. And I think the people who butted the comments or didn't like the comments were the people who had problems with rules or weren't raised with them, or were raised with them when they're too harsh and too cruel. And they were physically abused because they didn't follow rules. And that's not what we're talking about here. Okay? We're talking about lovingly running your household. Okay, so when you're creating rules, you have to keep a couple things in mind. They have to be very clear, very specific, and age appropriate. So you're not going to expect a 4-year-old to do something you expect a 10-year-old to do, right? So you have to have like the overarching rule, but then you adjust it for the age of the child, developmental age of the child and their abilities. You have to model behavior. Now, you know I say this, and every time I talk on a podcast or these lives, you model what you expect. You're the first teacher, they're watching you. You model it. You also praise. So you praise when they do something they're supposed to do. So make sure you're positively reinforcing what they're doing. And then you have those consequences. So there are logical consequences, natural consequences, positive ones, and negative ones. And I think I did a whole ebook on that, or a book on that. But here's the deal. They have consequences for not complying with the expectations. Now, you decide what those are in your household. That's up to you, but you enforce them every single time. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, let's get into this. So I'm going to get into some of the rules. Let me jump on here real quick and see what some of these comments are before I dig into these rules. Hello from Australia. Hey, Kentucky. Hey, Nancy. Carla, Michelle. Okay, structure. Thank you, Bree. Exactly. Grew up in a home with no structure, didn't know what to do. I see, it's tough. That's what I'm saying. When you take the walls away and the roof, you're very unsteady. Okay. All right. We have some from one. All right. So let's get into this. So you decide what your rules are going to be. Now remember, these are maintenance of the household. The happy home agreements or behavioral stuff, that's a separate thing. All right. So parents set the rules. You can discuss the behavioral things as a family, but you set the rules as a parent. Okay, so here you go. Responsibilities before play. Now listen, these are all common sense. These are not rocket science, any of them. So you say to your children, you have responsibilities in this house, and they need to get done before you're allowed to go play. That's a rule we have, right? So say your child's responsibility is to clean his room, and he doesn't for some reason. He didn't get it done. But his friend comes and says, hey, come on, let's go out and play. And he said, Mom, can I go play? And you're like, oh, absolutely. As soon as you clean your room. That's your responsibility. Get it done. Now, you don't cave on this. You don't have him go, oh, Mom, but just give me 15 minutes. I promise I'll come back and do it. You're like, yes, in 15 minutes you can have it done and you can be out playing. Because they need to understand when they grow up and go out in the world, do you think their boss is going to go, oh, you don't want to come in for 15 minutes because you're tired? Sure, not a problem. Just come whenever. Do you think that's going to happen? I don't think so. So you need to enforce it. Sometimes it's tough. You're tired. You've just had enough. You're like, whatever, just go play. Nope. Back it up. Make them handle their responsibilities first. Here's a real life example. I was with my grandchildren one day. I had gone over to pick 3 of them up. They're 3, 5, and 7. I was taking them out for the morning. They always have the water bottles with them. Well, they were all on the dining room table. And we were getting ready to leave. And I said, hey, you guys have everything? And they're like, yes. And I pointed to the table. I said, well, whose responsibilities are those sitting right there? And they all looked at me and they ran and got them. Now, could I have just picked them up and carried them out? Sure. But it wasn't my responsibility. It's theirs. They need to learn to handle their responsibilities. 3, 5, and 7, they were very capable of doing that. All right. Clean up after yourself. Here we go. You make a mess, you clean it. You're working on some art projects, you leave stuff around, tidy it up. We finished eating dinner, take your plate, your bowl, your cup, put it in the dishwasher or the sink. Clean up after yourself. You've taken a shower, clean up the bathroom after yourself. Get rid of the towel, the washcloth. Clean up. Common sense. Simple. You make a mess, you clean it. Okay? Very important you have bedtime and screen time rules for your children. Let me check time. Okay. Bedtime and screen time rules for your children. You set specific bedtime. Bedtime is at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever. Here's what we start doing at 6. You go through the process. Screen time. You limit your screen time, I hope. I hope your young children don't even have devices, but you all know how I feel about that. However, it's your household. Do what you want. But have clear rules around them, especially when they get older. Those phones go in the basket in the kitchen or they're coming to my room. Whatever you want to do. But set those and be firm about them. Okay? Now, let me just back up here because some people said, how are your children going to learn how to negotiate and compromise? If you have rules, then they have to stick to them. Well, there's lots of ways your children are going to have opportunities to learn how to negotiate and compromise in life. Okay? So here's one way you can do this. You have chores they have to get done. Now, let's say your rule is your children have to do their own laundry. And I can just tell you, when they're 7, 8 years old, you can start teaching them how to do their own laundry and make that their responsibility. We did that with our children. So you can say to your daughter, okay, you're 8 years old. Here's the expectation. You do your own laundry. Now, here's where you can negotiate your compromise. Pick the day of the week that you want to do it. You want to do Mondays? Great. You do your laundry on Mondays. You have all day to do it. So they've picked the day, and then you can say you can do it any time during the day. Do it before school, do it after school. That's up to you. Just get it done, right? Because sometimes you go to work, your boss says, here's the project, here's the deadline, just get it done. I'm not going to tell you it has to be done this specific time, just get it done. Same thing with your child. Now, watch this. So you've negotiated, they negotiated the day, and you say, oh, sure, okay, you can do it any time during the day, great. But guess what? If they don't do their laundry, then they have the consequence, which in this case would be, now you have dirty clothes. Because tomorrow's your brother's day to do his laundry, and Wednesday, your dad does his laundry, and Thursday, your other sister does her laundry, whatever. So what are you going to do? You don't need to clean clothes. That was your responsibility. That's life. So figure it out. You can learn to negotiate by saying to your brother, can I put some of my clothes in your load tomorrow, and then next week you can put some in mine to give you a head start on yours. Let them negotiate that. But you've given them the chore, the rule, the expectation. You let them pick the day. You let them know they have all day to do it. There you go. I'm not talking these rules have to be hard, rigid, or that you're going, get it done now. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay? But you have to let them face consequences of not completing their responsibilities. That's how they're going to learn. Okay? And then do your part. We're part of a family here, guys. We're a team, right? Like a sports team. They all have different roles they play. We're a team. And we have to work together to be successful as a family. It's just the way it is. And this is your responsibilities. These are our standards. These are our expectations. Let's get it done. Okay. Now, I am very specific about not stating things negatively, wording them positively. So the rule about this is, if you want a rough house, you want to run, you want to throw things, that's done outside. That's the rule. You do it outside. So if they do it inside, here's your choice. You either go outside and do it, or you don't do it at all. Period. Done. End of discussion. Got it? All right. Treating pets with kindness. If you have a pet in your house, dog, let's say you have a dog, and your child's job, responsibility, expectation is to walk the dog every day before school. That needs to get done. Feed the dog fresh water every day. Give him a bath. Whatever it is, you treat the dog with respect and kindness. That's our standards in our house. This is your responsibility. Make sure you get it done. Because if you don't feed the dog's going to want that food all day. They're going to be hungry. Okay? That's the consequence of it. Plus, you're going to have a consequence for not feeding the dog. And you can decide what your consequences are. But I'm just saying you have to be very clear and reinforce them every single time. Okay. Ask before taking. Simple rule. If it's not yours, don't touch it. You ask first. Finish what you start. So let's say your child comes home and he has homework to do. And your rule and your expectation is they come home from school, they can have a snack, they can chill for a little bit, watch a little TV or something, and then they have to do their homework before they can go out to play. And they're doing their homework, and then they're like, you know what, I'm tired of doing this, I think I'm just going to go out and play for a while. I say, well, the expectation is you complete your homework before you go out and play. Now, if you need to take like a 2-minute break, stand up, shake around a little bit, go get a drink of water, great. But you need to come back and finish what you started. Because it teaches your children follow through and commitment. Make them finish it before they go to do the next thing that they want to go do. Ask permission before going outside. Now listen, I'm just tossing out some rules here. You have probably a bunch of other different rules. Whatever they are, that's great. But Ask permission before going outside is an important one. They just don't leave the house without telling you where they're going. I don't care how old they are, right? I don't care if they're teenage. I mean, of course, when they're younger, they're not just going to run out of the house, hopefully. You're with them, or they're going to go play in the backyard or somewhere where you know where they're going, but they let you know. But especially as they get older, they just don't leave the house. You need to know where your children are to keep them safe and know what's going on, right? Say, ask permission to leave, or just say, hey, just let you know, especially as they're older. Okay, eating takes place in the dining room and kitchen only, or in the family room, whatever you decide. That's where we eat. Food stays out of the other places, but that's off limits. Now, if they violate that rule, here's what happens. They either have to come back into the kitchen, say they're in the living room eating a snack, eating ice cream, and you're like, the rule is we eat in the kitchen, the dining room. So you can either come in here and eat that, or you can just throw that away. It's your choice. Okay, so you're setting that expectation and you're reinforcing it. Okay, and then knock before entering someone's room. That's common courtesy. And put your dirty laundry in the laundry basket. Now, if you're doing laundry for your household, the rule is the laundry goes in your laundry basket. But here's what you do if they don't. You leave it on the floor and you don't wash it. It's not in the laundry basket. What goes in the laundry basket gets washed. So if it's outside of that, it's not getting washed. And you let it sit. And you do your laundry. And then when they go, Mom, no, I need this for school tomorrow. Well, it wasn't in the laundry basket. That's the rule. You're only going to have to do that a time or two, and I guarantee you they're going to know the responsibility is to put it in the laundry basket. Okay, so there's just a few. We have a couple minutes left. I want to answer some questions. If any of you have them on there, I hope you understood and got all that the rules are not to be controlling, to be mean, to be harsh. They're to keep your children safe, secure, teach them boundaries, teach them that they have responsibilities in life and they're going to have to follow rules all through their life. And life isn't always fair. And it's better they learn that at home with you than out in the world where people are not going to be as kind and loving as you might be with your children. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Watching from the Philippines. Hello. Hi, Deborah and Eden and Bonnie. And hi, Linda. Hey. Okay, Petrinia. We got Stephanie. Hey, Stephanie. Bree. Okay, so I'm going to repeat what Bree's saying. You guys can read this because I think this is important from somebody who learned growing up not having structure. I grew up with no structures. I have no idea what to do, where to go in life. It all leads back to no structure growing up. Please give your kids structure. It teaches them to be able to go through life with a sense of knowledge, confidence, keyword, to keep on going on track or less anxious when making choices. And Bree, thank you for sharing that. And I want to tell you, I have heard from followers who have said, I have a lot of anxiety because I didn't have rules growing up. And I don't know what to do. And it makes me anxious because I didn't have that structure and those boundaries. I didn't understand that I had to follow rules, right? There was none. I mean, I had one follower say, I have rules for my children. And I'm like, praying for them right now because they're going to need it. Okay. My grandson has a bad habit of taking the last item out of a package and leaving the package. All right, Linda, here's what I would do. I would take the package and go put it under the covers in his bed if he's living with you. I'd just put it in his room, Or you can call him back and say, you need to pick this up. Or if you put it in his bed, he's going to understand pretty quickly. All right. They'll leave it on the floor forever. You know what? That's okay. You know what you can do? So I like how you said that, Rez. I guess I'm assuming you're talking about when I talked about the laundry. Here's what you can do. Then you take that away and now it belongs to you. And if they want it back, they have to earn it back. So when we're talking, say, like toys, kids, you're supposed to clean up the room, the toy room, they don't want to clean it up or they walk away. You say, hey guys, your responsibility. You clean up behind yourselves, right? You clean up what you mess up. And they choose not to. You give them the opportunity and then you take the toys. You can have them help you put them in a basket or a bag and you say, guess what? These now belong to me. And you have to earn them back if you want them. And I'll give you time. You can say, I'll give you a week to do things, extra things to earn them back. And if not, I'm going to take them and donate them to Goodwill, or I'm going to give them to a child who would be thankful for them, or they're just going to go in the trash. So it's your choice. Okay? We've done that before. We literally threw a box full of toys. Our big playroom, the kids they didn't take it serious, and so we threw them out in the trash. We just sat it next to the trash can, and they watched the garbage men take them away. Okay? It was painful because we had paid for them, but guess what? My children learned a lesson. Okay, hello from beautiful Ventura County, California. Hi, Cindy. Good to hear you. Good to see you on here. Okay, so check out the podcast tomorrow on self-control, and look for the Happy Home Agreements on the website. If you go to Content Corner, PamelaPalanza.com, Content Corner, go under Read section. Hello from South Africa. I love this. I love you guys are coming from all over the world. Oh, this is amazing. Okay, let me just do this last one because we're running over here a little bit, which I'm fine on, but if you have to hop off, feel free. Sarah says, my 11-year-old tells me all the time it's not fair. My friend's mom lets him do what he wants. I've got this. Yeah, I used to hear that all the time. I'm not your friend's mom. One day my kid went to his house, and guess what happened? She could not find where they ended up going. Okay, see that just reading that, my heart went like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah, let me tell you, parents will say, kids will say, but her mom, and I'd say, well, that's fine. You can go live over there. Go see if they'll let you live over there. This our rules are here. So this is our rules here, and I expect you to follow them here. When you're an adult, you can have your own rules. Okay. Eden, this one is so effective that when my 10-year-old just leaves his plate on the counter, so I put it in the trash. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. Sometimes it's just little things that you can do to make those messages stick. It's just real life consequences for them to understand. Well, guess what? I left my toys out. No, I don't have them anymore. Because that's what happens in life, right? Okay. Anyway, I hope I got to some of these. If you have more questions, feel free to put them in here, and I will answer them this afternoon. But I'm going to load this up on my website. But until then, remember, hug and love your babies. See y'all later.